creepy worker creeped my uncle and me out. So my mom and dad were out of town and I was staying with my uncle and was cooking something for myself. Just then someone rang bell. I opened the door and it was a worker. So there was some construction work going on in the house next door. No one lives there. The owners were just getting some work done in the house. And the worker came to my house to get a matchbox for it. I don't know what reason exactly, and I gave it to him. While fetching the matchbox, I left the door opened, and while I was bringing it, I saw that the man was very weirdly checking out the house. I ignored it, but it felt weird. I gave him the matchbox, but he didn't just instantly go away. He stood there for almost 3 seconds, holding the matchbox in his hand and staring at me. Creeped me out a little, but as usual I ignored it, and I closed the door. But I don't know why, I just peeped through the peephole to see him, and he was still standing there giggling at the door. That scared me. I went inside and continued my work, and 15 minutes later doorbell rang again. This time my uncle checked the door and the man was like, "Hello, your daughter helped me so much. I just want to return that gratitude and paint one of your rooms." That sounded a little odd to my uncle, cause painting a room for a matchbox. My uncle declined the offer, but the man was reluctant. He was like, "It will only take an hour. I just want to color her room, make it beautiful, please. Sir, one room won't take much time." Now my uncle's gut feeling was giving up. He was like, nope, this guy is something off Sue. He declined it one last time, and this time when he saw him through the peephole, he too caught him staring at door. This was hella creepy. Don't know what his intentions were, but definitely creeped my uncle and me out. When I was 16 and working at my local McDonald's, it had been a long shift. Not much happens in a small town where I'm from, especially in a restaurant, besides your local junkies and such at night. One night on my shift, I was on my break on the front lobby and noticed a creepy, odd-looking man eyeballing a family at their table. I thought nothing of it at first until the little boy from the table got up and walked to the bathroom alone. I seen the man follow the boy to the bathroom, looking around to make sure someone didn't see him. I became weary and followed them into the bathroom, and when I walked in, the boy was in the bathroom stall, and the man appeared to be outside the stall waiting for the boy to get done. I was very tall when I was 16, 6'4", and 220 pounds, and already had facial hair. So I asked the man if there was a problem. He darted past me, and I followed him out of the bathroom, and he left the store. I reported this incident to the manager, who then called the police and looked at the cameras. It was a scary time, but I'm happy. I was able to make sure nothing bad happened to the child. Parents, please keep a close eye out on your children, especially in public settings.
Creepy guy tried to get me an SUV. In the early-ish 2000s, I was killing time outside a small concert venue, and it was going to be a while for the band to start, so I decided to walk around the neighborhood a while and text my friends to see when they were showing up. It wasn't a bad neighborhood, and I didn't feel unsafe walking around, but at night, most things were closed, so there wasn't really anybody else around. As I was walking and looking at my phone, this guy in an SUV, like an Isuzu Rodeo or something, pulled up halfway on the sidewalk right next to me and said something like, "Hey, do you want a ride?" I was slightly startled, but at first I thought he was harmless. To be fair, I was in my skinny jeans, hawk, emo phase, and he might have thought I looked like a male prostitute. When I looked closer at him, he had his shirt off and was all sweaty and kind of a bigger, stocky guy. He tried again in a more seductive-sounding voice, saying, "Really, I don't mind giving you a ride." I was pretty creeped out, but tried to be friendly. I just kept my distance and said thanks, but I'm good. I'm just waiting for a concert to start. Immediately, his facial expression changed from friendly to extremely angry, and he peeled out down the street so fast that his vehicle was sort of fish-tailing. He could have been an undercover cop trying to bust someone for prostitution, or just a guy trying to find a sexual encounter. It was in a city in Florida where there was a lot of this kind of thing going on, but he gave me serious Jeffrey Dahmer vibes after he got angry, drove off. I got the feeling that if I got in his car, he would have taken me somewhere and put me in his fridge.
Creep stalked me after being rejected. So the story started when I was 14, 17 now. So I used to play in a park with my friends. I had a crush on a boy who was 14 as well who used to play with us, and he too had a crush on me. And he had a friend who was older than him, 16, 17. So we all used to play together. I always saw my crush's friend as a brother, but his feelings for me were not appropriate. He liked me, so one day on my birthday, he randomly approached me and told me that he loved me. I replied that I did not have the same feelings for him and liked someone else. He did not take the no as an answer. Now that's when the creepy part started. I recently joined Instagram, and somehow he found my Instagram ID as began messaging about how he loved me. I rejected him multiple times, but he just won't stop. So I blocked him. Now he started making multiple Insta accounts to stalk me and message me from each one of them, and I kept blocking him. I was annoyed and enraged at this point and threatened him that I would report him to cyber police. So he took it up his ego and kinda started following me at places. He would take the same route as mine, knew the timings about when I was going to the park, when I was going to buy groceries. So whenever I went out of the house, he would creepily stare and continue ogling until I was out of his sight. He won't even budge his eyes for a second. When I used to play, I stopped playing with him, but he continuously roamed around me and stared. Now I was scared to a point where I started hesitating to go out of the house. Whenever I saw him, my heart would drop. I started hyperventilating. I thought this was only me who found him creepy. But when my mom was like, "Who is that guy who always roams around you? He doesn't give me good vibes, try to stay away from him." I was like, "Yup, he is bad." And you know that person is not very good if your mother's instincts sense something fishy. This went on for a whole 2 years, and his staring or messaging and stalking from fake accounts didn't stop. He even went to the extent to manipulate a friend of mine and my crush whom I started dating, that I was a slut. We didn't break up though. That's when I had enough and decided to take action. I went straight to that bastard and slapped him right into his face. To this day, whenever I hear his name or see his picture, I get a panic attack and my hands and legs start shaking in fear. In fact, he was sexually attracted to one of my friends and asked her if he could see her breasts. She was too scared to do anything to him or tell any adult. Creep tried to follow me home. This happened about a decade ago when I was 19. At the time, I rented an apartment in a west side neighborhood of Chicago with my sister, who was a year older than me. We both worked hospitality jobs in the city, and we both had pretty robust social lives, so it was fairly typical for one or both of us to get home at weird hours or be out all night. I take the pink line to and from work. At this point in my life, I was pretty used to being catcalled walking down the street. I'd been flashed on public transportation a few times. Men would bump into me from behind on packed trains. Basically the usual amount of sexual harassment for a young woman living in the city. Not much fazed me. Of course it was uncomfortable, but I was never truly terrified until one night. That night, I was coming home from work well after midnight. The train car I was in had been empty for most of the ride. One stop before mine, a man gets on and sits down in my car. Reflexively, I looked up as this new passenger entered the car. We made eye contact. Immediately, I felt the hair stand up on the back of my neck. I knew I'd made a mistake, that this might be interpreted as some sort of invitation. I quickly looked away, but felt him watching me as the train pulled away from the station. Since my stop was only one stop away, I decided to wait until the last second to stand up and exit the car, just in case he tried to follow me. Well, he did. He hung back about 30 feet at first, but I felt the gap between us closing and his footsteps were getting louder. Then I hear him trying to catch my attention, saying, "Hey." He catches up to me and starts speaking to me like any other man trying to chat me up would. I still couldn't shake the feeling of genuine fear I'd had since first locking eyes with him in the train car. He asks where I'm headed, and I told him I was going home. He asked if there was anyone waiting up for me this late. I told him my boyfriend was. In reality, I knew my sister was working a night shift and I was going home to an empty apartment. Then he pulled his shirt to the side, exposing a gun in his waistband. In a joking tone, he said he'd fight my boyfriend for me. I laughed along and just kept walking. We were walking down Cermak, which is a pretty busy street, even that late at night. I knew I couldn't let him follow me to my apartment, so when I came to the cross street where I should have turned, I just kept going straight. Eventually, I'd walked far enough that I passed the stop where he'd originally got on the train. He walked alongside me for a while, then dropped back and followed me for a while, and eventually stopped. I thought I would be relieved once I'd shaken him, but as soon as I couldn't see him anymore, my fear only heightened. I still had to double back to my apartment somehow, and the trains had stopped running at 2 a.m. I figured he knew I'd walked too far and would have to turn around, so I thought it was possible he was posted up somewhere on Cermak waiting for me. I turned off and walked a few blocks north and then started my walk back west toward my apartment. The walk back was excruciating. Since I was now off the main road, it was much darker and there was absolutely nobody around. I kept telling myself I had to get home safe for my sister because she'd never be able to live with herself if something happened to me. I kept putting one foot in front of the other, and when I finally made it into my apartment and locked the door behind me, I collapsed in a puddle of tears. 10 years later on, I've never felt fear again like I did that night. To this day, I've never told my sister about it.